If there was one thing the Victorians knew intimately, it was death. Diseases were rife, ideas about nutrition were odd, opium was given to babies, and mortality, with the attendant periods of prescribed mourning, was a general obsession. If someone died, you changed your wardrobe to black, you curtailed your social appearances, you gave up laughter. Also, you wept. Victorians wept a lot. Those around you were expected to accept the state of your emotions. Curtains were drawn, noise was curtailed, tiptoeing set in. Almost 200 years later, people are finding they have something to learn from their long vanished ancestors. Grief has become permissible again.
How do you consider it when you think about how the nature of Victorian grieving, the nature of the Tennyson works? At a different time, people would have said, oh, this is so maudlin. I mean, really, come on, I'm getting squeamish. And now we look at it and it's like, what? It just breaks your heart.
Yes, well, every generation is succeeded by one that makes fun of it. Mm-hmm. Be prepared. It will happen to us if it hasn't already. So you move in from the Victorian age into the roaring 20s, and you have Lytton Strachey writing eminent Victorians and just making fun of the earnestness and the and people in those generations would say they were so morbid.
Those of us who remember the losses of the 80s when AIDS and the HIV pandemic was rampant, and so much of that fear, ignorance, uncertainty, people dying within weeks. And yet, I don't know whether it just passed me by, but I wasn't thinking about the Victorian mourning at that point.
When AIDS came along, it was like the Grim Reaper because nobody knew much about it. They had no therapies and people just were mowed down very quickly.
Let me ask you to return to Smudgie and to Tennyson.
Yes, it is the rewrite of Tennyson's Morte d'Arthur from the point of view of cats. So King Arthur is not King Arthur, he's King Smudgie, and his courtiers are all cats. From Morte de Smudgie, it's the end when in the Tennyson poem, King Arthur is bidding goodbye to Sir Bedivere. But in this reworking, it's King Smudgie bidding goodbye to Sir Catavere. My end draws nigh, 'tis time that I were gone. Make broad thy cat carrier to receive my weight and bear me to the vet place. Yet I fear my wound hath taken cold and I shall die. Cerements, thought Nell, how Egyptian, or more like a preserved saint, freeze-dried and put on show in a cathedral. Would there be holy relics of Saint Smudgie distributed or sold? Would there be pilgrimages? Would there be miracles? Lizzie had 2 roommates. Nell hoped Lizzie had informed them. She didn't like to think of one of them pawing through the frozen packages in search of dinner and coming upon red brocaded Smudgie unexpectedly, fur-covered, stiff, with white incisors showing between his shriveled lips. What the fuck is this? How helpless the dead are, Nell thinks. What humiliations occur to them, not that they care. So the backstory of that is that Nell's sister has put Smudgie in her freezer shared by 2 roommates.
I actually did what you're talking about in this Nell's sister doing. I actually put a cat in my freezer for a while because it was January and the ground was too hard to actually dig a grave. Mm-hmm. So the cat was in there for a while. And the other thing that I've done that people thought was a bit weird was that I had buried a couple of cats at my parents' place, and my mother wanted me to transplant them, or if I wanted to, do you want to take your cat away because we're selling the house? So I did, and then I wrote an essay about it called Digging Up the Cat, which everybody thought was so weird that my agent wouldn't place it.
Now, here she is in the present, revolving many memories. No cats now. The Tennyson rewrite thing had been when? 25 years ago, when she and Tig had still been young, though they hadn't thought back then that they were young, middle-aged, past the halfway mark, countdown days. Already they'd been making jokes about creaky knees. What did they know about creaky knees back then? They could still go hiking, for heaven's sakes. When had that become impossible? It hadn't really been about Smudgie. It had been about Tig. She must already have known on some level that he was bound to set sail first, leaving her stranded in the harsh frost in the wasteland, in the cold moonlight. Sorry. And now he's done it. He's no longer on the shore. He's moving away from her, over the water, diminishing, vanishing. So this is basically is the poem. It begins with Sir Bedivere when he's old, remembering all of this. If you'll recall the beginning of Morte d'Arthur, which is in this book that you have put together.
Audrey, how did the Victorian era affect your art in terms of being able to release ambivalence or protecting a corner of romance and possibility for you? How did that trickle its way into your work and your outlook?
So I am one of those people who's very influenced by Aubrey Beardsley.
Oh, yeah.
When I was 14, I had a very bad earache. I used to get these all the time, and my mother brought me these gigantic slab of library books, and one of them was a catalog of a show that the V&A did of Beardsley in 1967. And I thought, oh, yeah, this is for me. This is the master I want to follow.
The line drawing, yeah.
The line, and all that went with it, the early death of tuberculosis and the attraction to all things Japanese. And he, of course, wanted to be a pre-Raphaelite. I mean, he went and kind of genuflected to Edward Burne-Jones at the beginning of his career. So he was trying to be a Victorianist, but of course he was a person of his own time. And so I always have that eye on the horrible 20th century and the gulf that separates us from the 19th, and can't quite believe in the happy ending either. But you can't do an entire lifetime's worth of work that's hopeless. I mean, there has to be the complexity of human existence. I mean, there's collective grief and there's individual grief, and those are very different things. I mean, it's hard for people when they're grieving and it's sunny outside and the rest of the world's just getting on with it. And it's also, I think, hard for individuals when everybody's grieving, because you feel like you're lost, like your person has been just subsumed by the torrent of grief. So it's hard either way. But my own work is, quite a bit of it is about loss and grief, but also love and beauty and sex and rock and roll. So you gotta have all of it at once.
I just love bringing the two of you and Arion Press and our craftspeople together to make something
really weird, Susie.
Something truly weird.
It's really weird.
And truly prescient. And
I'm not sure about that.
Oh, I think so.
No?
I mean, Margaret knows that when she sent me that story, I called up you with tears in my eyes. I said, this speaks to me about what is happening right now. And I am reading things into the haunting, the horror, the cherishing, the missing, just the yearning for something that you can't hold on to was, you made light of it. We laugh, but then the tears come. And that's that was just what the doctor ordered, as far as I was concerned. Margaret, Audrey, thank you so much for joining us today and talking a little bit about Morte de Smudgie. I think we did something wonderful and, as you put it, a little weird, a little wicked, a little mind-provoking. It's always special to have this kind of kismet with such special artists. So thank you very much.
Thank you.